Hello and welcome to the second session of the lower leg and foot work from our 6-week course Pilates for Runners. This section is all about mobilising the feet and the ankles, and we're going to start with a nice activation of the deep intrinsic muscles of the feet. So this is very similar, or I sort of think of them very similar as to the abdominals, and how when we activate the abdominals it doesn't necessarily create a movement in the body, but it just creates an activation. So that's the same with the feet, and I want you to think of drawing your knuckles towards the knuckles of your toes in towards the heel, and then the heel in towards the knuckles, to feel this activation of the feet, of the arches of your feet. And when you're doing this, just try to achieve it without too much activation of the muscles through the front or the top of the feet. So you'll be able to see those. If I sort of pull my toes up, you can see the tendons in the top of your feet. So it's almost like you want to arch up through the feet and soften. It's quite a subtle thing. It's quite difficult to see maybe on the video, but it's a pulling in, and I arch. My tendon on my big toe is coming up there. So I kind of want to sort of keep my toes spread wide and lift through the arch of the foot. Now this isn't something that will maybe happen straight away, because it's an activation. It's a lot to do with the nervous system and having that control, or that ability to activate. So it's just something that now you're conscious of, you may then be able to start to practice and consider having a go at doing that. So once we've just activated those feet, we're going to think about the toes, and I want you to pick all 10 toes up off the floor. Draw them up towards you and pop them down. So when this happens, just make sure that your hips don't drop backwards. Think of lifting up through your lower abdominals and pulling those toes up and down. Again, pull the toes up and down. We'll do that just one more time, lifting those toes up and popping them down. Now just place your left foot just behind your right foot. We're going to work through the feet, through the toe joint. And I want you to roll up onto all of those toes in the back, paying particular attention to the big toe. And I want you to make sure that your heel actually comes over the big toe. Very easy for this to happen here, where the ankle drops out to the side. So again, just paying attention to how we bring that foot forward. This is our strike off. And then we place the heel down. So we're going to roll over onto that big toe. The knee is tracking forward. The heel is above the toe. And come down. So now we're going to come up onto that same position. And then I'm going to get you to almost push down onto the top of your big toe, so you come onto the top. So I'm in almost like a point position. I then roll back down onto the ball, and then the heel comes down. Repeat that again, rolling onto the toe, tracking, then onto the tip of the toe, place the ball down, and then the heel. Onto the ball, onto the tiptoe, onto the ball, and onto the heel. One more time, lifting up, onto the tiptoe, onto the ball, and then the heel. Lifting onto the ball, then onto the tiptoe. We're going to come over the top of the toe, and now we're here. And then we lift onto the tiptoes, down onto the ball, and onto the heel. Lifting ball onto the tiptoe, over the top of the big toe, then onto your tiptoe, ball and heel. Just one more time. Lifting onto the ball, tiptoe, over onto the top of the toe, tiptoe, ball and heel. Then we're going to do the same on the other side, so exactly the same, and you might feel that there's a difference between one side to the other. First, just roll up onto the ball of the toe. Knees forward, heels coming over the ankle, over the big toe, not letting the ankle drop out. Same as before, and down. And again, lifting. You notice I've just put my foot slightly behind, not too far back, but just so that this forefoot is more closer to my centre of gravity, or to my centre line. And in. And I come up, then lift onto the tiptoe, onto the ball, and onto the heel. So I have the chair there for stability if you need it, it's not essential. And down, and again. So we do about 4 repetitions of each, onto the tiptoe, down, and onto the heel. Again, ball, toe, then roll up and over. So just a side view there, I come over the top. Yeah, so I'm bending there, quite uncomfortable, onto the tip, ball, and the heel. And again, ball, toe, forwards, toe, ball, heel. Ball, toe, forwards, toe, ball, and heel. Very good. Then, this one is, again, is just a different way of moving the feet, stretching the toes. We're going back to the left foot first. This is my tightest side. I'm going to have my big toe under, and then I'm going to have the 4 other toes in front. So I've got this kind of, split in the toes there. And then I'm just going to be there. Now this is a little bit uncomfortable to start with, and you might need to manoeuvre your toes to get them into a position. And once you're there, you can, if you feel you've got it, you might just add a little bit of bouncing. There. And then release. Then we do the reverse of that. So this time, my toes are under, and my big toe is in front. So if I come around this way, it might be easier for you to see. My big toe is forwards, and my 4 other toes are under. And again, just being there, just sitting over the feet, and then releasing. Or other side. So big toe under, 4 other toes come out in front. A little bit of manipulation, a little bit of help might be needed, especially to start with. It can feel quite uncomfortable. And then just maybe a little bit of a bounce. Yeah. And then change. So now the little toe, the 4 toes are under, the big toe is forwards. And again, we just find that stretch. Big stretch through the feet. They're going to feel amazing at the end. And release. Good. Okay, so now we can use the chair for a little bit of balance if you want to, but again, not essential. We're going to work through the toes, carrying our body weight. So working up into the calves a little bit more now. So again, still kind of noticing the ball of the big toe. I want you to make sure your hips are forwards. Okay, then just bring your weight slightly forwards. And once you're slightly forward, you feel the weight more onto your forefoot. Yeah, then you start to rise up onto the toes. And then, keeping that length through your spine, you're going to slowly bring yourself down, just so the heels just touch. Then we lift, and we lower, and we lift, and we lower, and lift, and lower, and lift, and lower. 4 more. And lift, and lower, and whoops, and lift, and lower. Now that's your basic calf raise. You can play around with the speeds in which you do this, and I'm going to use the chair just for a little bit of balance, just so I my control and give myself an opportunity to be more controlled. So I'm going to push myself up fast, and then come down slower. So I lift up and slowly down. Lift up and slowly down. Lift up and slow control, up, slow control, up, slow control, up, and slow control. The progression for that is to have yourself stand on the edge of a step, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to use these blocks, which are great. And if you're at home, you can just stand on the edge of a brick. Yeah, so I'm going to have my forefoot on the brick, so the ball of my big toe is on, and I let my heels come down. Again, I don't want to let my hips come backwards all the time, and this is really important for us runners, is to keep us open and long through the front of the hips and have this little bit of thoracic extension so we're not collapsing. So I'm growing right through the front of the body, my heels are down. And then from here, from that lengthened position through the calf, I'm going to lift up onto my toes. So the soleus, which is the deeper calf muscle, is one of the muscles that take most of the load. At peak sort of load, it can be taking up to 6 times your body weight, yeah, on that contact at peak load. So there's a huge amount of ask from those muscles. So conditioning them, looking after them is really going to help, and to help to keep you injury free. Lifting and lowering. So in the same instance as we did earlier when we were just on the floor, we can change the tempo. So I come up fast and then I slowly lower. I come up fast and then I slowly lower, keeping my hips open, yep, and keeping on the ball of the big toe. So the heel comes up and softens down. Heel up and down. Heel up and down. Heel up and 2 more. Lift up and down. Whoops. Lift up and down. I always really like to do alternating ones here, but when we do so, just calf lowering. So I roll onto the ball of the big toe and then let the heel go down behind, rolling up and on. So again, we want to make sure that those hips, that we're not ending up doing this, yeah, and leaning forward, shortening here. Keep those hips open. Good, and it's like the heel drops low and down behind. And again, long. So we're really starting to feel a lovely lengthening. It's very dynamic, the stretches, so we're not holding the stretches like you might do in those static stretches that quite often people will carry out after or before exercise. These much more dynamic stretches, I feel much more conditioning for the body from a functional point of view. Good. Then we can just bend the knees and let the heels come off. So the soleus is the stretch that we're giving here. So that deeper lying muscle, the one that does most of the work or has a huge amount of load going through it, as well as the other calf muscle, the quadriceps and glutes. So there's lots of work and conditioning needed for those 3 main muscles that are used a lot or taking a lot of the force in running. So the knees are bent. Good. I like to work through a combination for soleus, and I'm not going to do it on the brick today. We're going to do it on the mat. Again, just to get that feeling of combining knee bend. So here we have this lower calf, the soleus. Toes are spread. Then I roll onto my toes and I lift, heels down. This is a great combination. It's really easy to do, but really does hit into lots of benefits. We've got the toe mobilization, we've got the calf stretching, the strengthening, really lovely. And we can do it in both directions. So we then change, coming up, bend, down and stand. Up, bend, down and stand. Up, bend, So today, that's really as much as I would like to give you in terms of mobilising the lower leg and foot. There is a combination that will be on the final video, which is amazing for a progression for the work that you've been doing on your lower leg and foot work, as well as it allows us to activate into the hip and work the hips as well. So look forward to that one.